Joining me now is Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio's 4th Congressional District. You know him because he speaks his mind and he tells the truth and he brings this thing we call common sense to the conversation. Congressman, nice to see you again. Thank you for taking the time.
Steve, good to be with you. Thanks for what you're doing.
All right, so there's a lot going on. I don't even know where to begin. Let's start with lawfare. Let's talk about this.
Yep.
District judges, federal district judges, which are basically local judges, imposing their will across this nation. I don't believe that's the way Article 2 powers are supposed to be restricted. I don't think I'm wrong on this, and yet I keep seeing this happen over and over again. We're being blocked, we being the American people, being blocked by way of Donald Trump sending Tren de Aragua, MS-13, and other violent gangbangers out of this country, and a judge saying, well, you can't do that. What do you make of all this?
No, I think first there's just a common sense. You look at this judge, like the judge said, turn the plane around, bring the bad guys back here. I mean, these are bad guys who are in the country illegally, and they're part of this international gang, this gang that's notorious for doing terrible things. And they're not Boy Scouts, they're bad guys. And the judge said, bring them back here. Made no sense. And then, as you point out, I think the president is on strong constitutional grounds, strong statutory grounds. The Constitution, Article 2, Section 1, first sentence says that executive power is vested in a president, not some unelected district judge. And then second, the statute from way back when, the Alien Enemies Act, says if it's a predatory incursion, well, that's certainly what that is. They're here illegally. They're bad guys. Again, they're not Boy Scouts. You can do this. So I think he's on strong statutory ground. But you got this judge who thinks he's smarter than the 77 million Americans who elected President Trump.
And yet I just saw a panel decide that he can remain, his order stays for now. They did not overrule him, which is surprising to me. So it's going to be on to the Supreme Court. And I've got to be honest with you, Congressman. I'm a little concerned by that when I see John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett waffling on things that should be pretty clear, I would think, to a conservative jurist. I don't have a lot of confidence that it's going to go the right way. Look, at what point do these judges think they can say, well, don't arrest this person? We just saw an MS-13 leader in this country brought down by Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and the forces. I mean, where does this end?
Well, I think the Supreme Court may, in fact, rule the right way. We'll have to see. I do know on a slightly different issue, these injunctions where you will have a district judge issue an injunction and it'll apply nationwide. We actually think that should change. We've got legislation we passed out of the committee 3 weeks ago, which will address that. It's going to be on the floor next week. So we think that that'll be helpful. And some of the judges, including liberals on the Supreme Court, have raised concerns about a district judge issuing an injunction which has national implications, applies nationally versus just in that jurisdiction, just to the parties of the case. So we think that we can do well in the Supreme Court. We want to pass this legislation which deals with a slightly different issue than Judge Boasberg. His was a temporary restraining order or an order. But all of this is a concern, and we're having hearings on this next week in our committee, and also Senator Grassley plans to have hearings in the Senate Judiciary Committee as well.
And I think Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth raised a great point, which is this. At what point do these judges think they can dictate movements on a battlefield? How far do they think they can inject themselves in? And look, Chuck Schumer made this clear. He made this clear that there were a couple of hundred judges added at the late hour of the Biden administration to do exactly what we're seeing here. It's judicial interference, and it's by design, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why we should look at the legislative levers we have to impact this. We should look at the appropriations process, which is the real power Congress has. And, of course, we should do the oversight, which is the hearings that we plan to start next week.
Yeah, all right. So let me ask you about something else. Talking about all these things. Now there's been a lawsuit filed in this whole Signal Gate issue, whatever this is. I don't think it's a scandal. I've read the text messages. I think we all have at this point. I don't see who, where, how, why, or when. I don't see any of that. I see a conversation of pros and cons about military operations, and not just with the Houthis, but with Gaza and other places. I don't know how this Jeffrey Goldberg got put into this conversation. That's a question that does need to be answered. But there's nothing here that violated national security or anything else that I can see. Do you see something else?
Well, and then there's also what happened. Bad guys got killed. The operation was a success. No Americans were hurt. No Americans were injured, as far as I know. And they've told us that it wasn't classified information conveyed in the conversation. So let's move forward and let's get on with doing what President Trump campaigned to do. I mean, I think that's the takeaway the vast majority of the American people have. So let's stay focused on that.
And so where do you think this goes? There was a lawsuit just filed. I couldn't believe it, Congressman. A lawsuit filed against Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz and Tulsi Gabbard and all of these folks based on what I'm not sure, but it's another meddlesome lawsuit. And is this where we are in America? Look, they couldn't beat Donald Trump politically. They couldn't beat him legally, obviously, because he's been reelected. His agenda, he's been whooping their tails for about 65 days now with everything he's doing, right? I mean, he's winning, so they have to have some distraction, and the only thing they have left are distractions and lawfare. But where does that leave us?
And you know, the judge who gets assigned the case, randomly selected, is Judge Boasberg, the same judge who said, turn the plane around, bring him back. I mean, Shazam, it just happened to be him. So maybe that's right, but you kind of got to wonder how he's the one who winds up getting the case. Again, and the guy who brought the action with American Oversight, Norm Eisen, he's the guy the Democrats a few years ago brought into the committee, to the Judiciary Committee, to help with their impeachment of President Trump. So this looks pretty choreographed. We'll just have to see how it shakes out.
It does look pretty choreographed and pretty. It's pretty well wrong. So they're going after Elon Musk. And here's something I need to ask you about Elon Musk. You see all of these attacks on Tesla dealerships and attacks on people's personal vehicles. I haven't heard one Democrat say, "Hey, this is wrong. Stop it." I mean, people bought a car to take their kids to school or go to work or whatever, and they're being attacked. I mean, thousands of dollars worth of damage. What's wrong with these people?
Well, I like to say now, I think the divide in America is common sense versus crazy. We're the party of common sense, as President Trump always says. They're the party who's embraced all kinds of crazy ideas. They're the party that says, you know, let's defund the police. It's crazy to defund the police. It's crazy not to have a border. It's crazy to have men compete against women in sports. It's crazy to have to encourage the firebombing of Teslas, for goodness sake. It's crazy for a judge to say, turn the plane around, bring the bad guys back here, and you can just keep going. If they're going to embrace crazy concepts, we'll stick with common sense. I think we'll win elections.
Well, you know, they do have Jasmine Crockett as the leader of their party, apparently. So that's pretty well out there. Let me ask you a couple more things here. You were at the wrestling championships here a few days ago. You see the president, how he's received by common sense, middle America. I mean, what did you make of that?
Well, when he walked in, there were 18,000 wrestling fans. I think all 18,000 were amazing ovation he got. And then the key match, of course, was this heavyweight match where the young man from Oklahoma State, who had done his 4 years at the Air Force Academy, had an extra year, that went to Oklahoma State because he wanted to be a national champion. He ends up beating the reigning Olympic champ, the toughest guy on the planet. No way he's supposed to win. And I told the president, I said, that young man doesn't win if you're not there. Because he had said something like, you know, his commander-in-chief, his boss was going to be there. And I think that was sort of the added energy and emotion that sometimes we see in sports, where he wrestled a match that was just unbelievable. And so that was sort of the highlight of the evening. And then for him to salute the president, it was a great night for wrestling fans, a great night for America when you see this young man pull off this upsets, with, you know, the kind of thing that we get in sports sometimes. A lot of fun.
It was special. And look, it's the same attitude Donald Trump brings to this country. Congressman Jim Jordan from the great state of Ohio, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Take care.
There you have it. All right.